Hey guys, it's Paul Myers, co-owner of Intentional Counseling, licensed professional counselor. We are a group practice in Frisco, Texas. We specialize in mental health, and I'm going to cover some cognitive behavioral therapy work today, but more specifically, 4 types of negative thinking that produce anxiety, okay? So if you have anxiety, you may have or relate to one of these 4 types of thinking. These are thought patterns that are consistent and reoccurring in their themes. So trying to be more aware of your thought patterns will kind of help you if you struggle with anxiety. So pay close attention. We have the first type of negative thinking, which is the classic worrying. This is very, probably the most common, very normal if you have anxiety. Worrying is mostly focusing on the future, focusing on the what ifs, focusing on negative scenarios, okay? So key characteristics of this style are overestimating the odds of something negative occurring, or expecting failure or embarrassment. You kind of predicting that future negatively, right? Or you're going to that worst case scenario, like catastrophizing those future scenarios of really awful things happening. And you're going there in your mind, hypothetically, okay? So this is the classic worrier. Probably the most common of the 4 types that I'm mentioning, but definitely producing anxiety. If you think about negative and you go there in your mind, you're going to experience fear and anxiety. It's very natural. What you think about produces how you feel. So the second type of thinking is perfectionism. So perfectionism is concentrating on the shoulds. So I should this, I should that, I shouldn't this, I shouldn't that. And really what it is you have all these rigid rules and high expectations of yourself. These high expectations produce a lot of inner turmoil, inner stress. Imagine there's a small version of you in your head, just kind of, with a whip behind you, just goading you along, like, be better, So it's constantly trying to push you along to improve, but it's all about shoulds. Common expression would be I have to, like it's not questionable, it's like mandatory, like I have to be the best in my class, or I have to be the top player, or the whatever, okay? So high expectations of self, rigid, unflexible rules that you have for yourself. I have to, shoulds. Perfectionism is very much based on the results. So if I didn't get that result I wanted, I failed, right? And that's kind of the way of thinking. It doesn't look at the process at all. It only looks at the end result and how you are in comparison to that end result. So it's very black and white. I either met that expectation or I'm a failure. And so it's, this is the expectation. Everything up to it is failure. And when I meet that expectation, well, that was expected. So it's really unfortunate. It produces anxiety because you're constantly nervous, you're not going to make it to your goal. And then when you do make it to your goal, you really don't enjoy any of it. You don't get any benefits. You don't feel excited. You don't give yourself credit for that sense of accomplishment because that was expected, right? So that's kind of a perfectionistic mindset. Produces anxiety, very, very common, okay? Then we have self-criticism. Self-criticism is the third type, and really what it is, it's similar to perfectionism, but it's more different. This one's more focused on, it's less focused on results, more focused on flaws, failures, weaknesses, inadequacies. So it really accentuates those. And so that's kind of the main aspect of it, where it's negatively biased towards yourself. So you could actually do something well, but then you kind of misconstrue it and say, well, that wasn't because of me, that was just because of luck. And you kind of have that negative bias, you discredit good, and you accentuate negative. So it points out failures, it points out flaws whenever possible, focuses on your weaknesses and inadequacies. It's negatively biased towards yourself, and it tends to compare yourself to others and seeing other people as coming out more favorably than yourself, okay? We're like, oh, wow, that person's better than me, and I'm not that good, right? Now, when you may very well you may very well be just as good as they are. So, okay. Last type is a defeatist mindset. It's also known as a victim mindset. Really what this is you kind of give up before you even get started. You throw in the towel early, you get demoralized, and you kind of surrender, and you shut yourself down before you could even take that opportunity, right? So a good example would be like seeing the road as too long to even get started on, right? Or obstacles are just too insurmountable, so I'm not even going to bother or waste my time on it. It tends to have this hopeless outlook on the future, like, well, there's no hope, what's the point, it's not going to matter. It bemoans things as they are even in the present. So it's constantly kind of fixating and bemoaning, and complaining. It also it doesn't acknowledge the option of taking personal accountability for your own future and your own life. So it doesn't really look at what you can control as an individual. Like, well, I could, study harder and maybe do better, or I could learn new skills. Or it doesn't focus on any of that. It just kind of says, well, there's nothing I can do, and I'm not responsible here, and it gives up. And so you kind of ruin your own opportunities just before you even are even open-minded enough to create positive change. And so this one actually promotes anxiety and depression. I've seen self-criticism produce some depression. I've seen defeatists produce some depression, but they all produce anxiety, which is the main focus of the video today, is anxiety treatment. So if you relate to any of these, don't beat yourself up. If you're self-critical, don't beat yourself up. These are really common. A lot of the time they're just habitual. Either we grew up this way, or our parents were this way, or we were around this type of culture and philosophies and ways of thinking, and we kind of soaked up these habits and these negative thought patterns. We got them from somewhere. We don't just wake up this way. We usually gather these types of thinking over time through negative experiences or your environment or a combination. So don't kick yourself if you have these. This is just for awareness, so be aware of your own thought patterns, see if you identify with any of these. Maybe you could explain some of your anxiety and depression struggles. And I've seen people that live in these types of thinking regularly, it's very pervasive, that it actually feeds their own anxiety and depression, and actually makes it very cyclical and perpetuates those struggles. And so the good news is this is actually an easier fix, because you do have control over your thoughts. So you can develop the skill of being aware of your thoughts, changing your thought patterns, and shifting them to be more positive. Okay? So hopefully that helps you. Hey, if you haven't done therapy, please go to intentional-counseling.com. Either myself or one of our trained therapists at our practice would be happy to help you, either in person or virtual. Okay? Leave comments below. We would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your feedback. If you have any suggestions of maybe some topics you'd like for us to cover, feel free to ask, and we'll be happy to do that for you and get those out. All right, guys, take care.